the middle-aged Bodcast. Getting older, but having some laughs.
Welcome back to the Middle-Aged Podcast bonus episode with me, Raging Rich.
And me, T.A. Shalana.
And T.A., this is the final of our bonus episodes, and we are going to be discussing Bliss Revisited again as we look back at the project and kind of come up with some ideas as to how we do it now.
Yeah, I think we talked about this obviously way back, season 1, episode 3, I think it was. We talked about the sort of short film project that you and I had pulled together a long, long time ago, and we talked about going back over that and maybe put a modern day theme on it. And I think that's where we're going with this episode a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is one of those things where Bliss was a bit of a project that could have been something really interesting. And actually, I do think now that we're kind of older, wiser, and also looking at things that have been put out there as content, there's a lot we can do with it as a project. And it does seem like, based upon the analytics of the episode, that a lot of people did listen to that episode. So we thought, yeah, we're back. Let's do it. Let's do a, as we called it, Bliss Revisited. But yeah, let's have a little bit of a chat through it. So T.A., what kind of things were you thinking about?
Well, I think what's interesting is, Rich, you and I haven't really fully discussed this. So we're actually discussing this as in it's fresh and it's bouncing ideas. So I just did a few things where I got more into what would we do in terms of bringing the group back together, getting a new member, that kind of thing. How would they come back into the modern day conscience in terms of some of the things that have perhaps evolved since you or I first came up with this concept many, many moons ago? And I'm interested in what you think about the idea of a reinvention into the group, because like one of them has gone on a established reality show, like they've gone into the jungle or they've gone onto a certain dancing competition, and it's kind of then blown back up of people going, who's that? You know, especially sort of the younger people who wouldn't remember it so well. I'm thinking a bit along the theme of Stranger Things, where the tune, the younger people went, what's that? And they didn't know.
Oh, we've running up that hill.
The hill, yeah. So I'm thinking like you suddenly get this vibe into one of the cast members has sort of gone, viral chewing through a kangaroo's testicle, and it's kind of brought the whole thing back together. So that's one of my ideas. Or they're just like amazing on the dancing. Beyond that, I thought about, in the modern world, when we wrote this didn't really exist, but the social media thing now. So you could have people kind of auditioning, putting their own videos online, views, likes, comments, all those kind of things that, drive those algorithms that you and I have been talking about. So I think there could be an option there. We could almost have like a docu-series where we're getting into all of that, of where they're trying to find the new member. Now, you and I tried to do it in the offline world, and now maybe doing that in the online world of virtual recordings and, virtual auditions and all that kind of stuff, and looking at engaging with the popularity on the public on social media as to why they should be in the group, bringing the group back on social media, stuff like that. And then the other thing that's obviously become a really, really popular thing for genuine artists of an era is the reunion tours, which are obviously doing huge numbers. We're seeing it right now where groups are coming back, doing huge, massive sort of gigs in arenas and whatnot. Could they come back and be part of that? Could they come back and be part of that off the back of bringing in a new member off social media, a new batch of fans with the old batch of fans, new tour, maybe even some new material that can go out there? These are sort of my overarching ideas. Whereas I think, Rich, you've gone into it in a little bit more depth than me, perhaps.
I've been thinking about this for a really long time. In fact, since we spoke about it in season 1, I just thought, we wrote it as a short film. What if it were a series? And then I went, well, okay, it's a series. What kind of concepts would you go with? We obviously were inspired to get into writing by things like the British version of The Office and things like that. And so I thought, okay, how would you set this? One of the big things that's been coming out recently, sort of the documentary series, that you kind of mentioned, that have led to these reunion tours and things like that. So I thought, okay, what if it were kind of like The Office in that documentary style setting, sort of The Office and Modern Family style, but it had kind of the humorous take of sort of Gavin and Stacey as well. So combining two great, so we've like The Office and Gavin and Stacey, combining two great British comedy shows and just sort of taking that as inspiration as to how you'd go about it. So I've kind of done a little bit of a breakdown of it into the characters, the motivation behind those characters, and then turning it into kind of a 6-episode series. So the idea of the short film, of course, was that it was going to be union of the band. One member didn't come back. I think in the original script we'd written that they were pregnant, and then so they decided instead to get a new member of the band, and they have auditions. The joke was they did the auditions in the pub, and it was kind of all that the manager of the group was kind of half-arsing it in a way. It was kind of done as a bit of he's really just doing it for his own benefit, not theirs. And so I've kind of gone with a completely different take for this. So my sort of idea is much like the original concept that Bliss were the biggest girl band there was in the UK. They had this album that sold really well. They did this tour. And then their lead singer leaves and she goes solo. And the idea is she's gone solo and essentially used Bliss as a vehicle to kind of push her to the stratosphere and sort of the other two members of the group are kind of left behind because the record company they were with is like, we don't really believe in you. And it's kind of going back to that idea as well of record companies where it's the control they had over the artist. You can't release that. You can't write your own songs. You write the songs our writers have done for you. You do this kind of music. And it's kind of that. And then their manager, when he gets them back together, is going, well, actually, we need to do this differently. We need to embrace the creativity within the group. So let me give you a bit of a breakdown, if you will, that. So 6-episode miniseries is my plan today. I've drafted out the characters. So we'd have, and I have cast a few of these characters just to kind of give it a sort of visual thing. The character of Jason Maxwell, the manager of the band, my thought process was to have him played by Jason Manford. I feel like he is really good, obviously, with the comedy, but he did Waterloo Road recently. And that's a very dramatic role, and he showed he can handle the dramatic side as well. So we've got him kind of leading the charge of bringing the group back together. And then the group consisted originally, I've got 3 characters here. I've got Samantha, Hayley, and Tina. And Tina is the one who leaves. And I thought, well, who could we cast? The character we called, I've called her Tina D'Amico. Very sort of Italian sounding surname. And then I've gone with the complete opposite of an Italian casting by casting Tulisa as that character. But I think Tulisa would be great to play Tina as a character. Obviously, she's an established star in terms of some of the other castings I wanted to go with. And I thought that might work. So the idea is with Tina, she's the band member who leaves to go solo, and over the course of the show she kind of takes on the role of their rival for the Christmas number 1.
Okay, that's an interesting idea, Rich. Carry on.
So I've then got Samantha, Hayley, and Megan. So Megan is the new member of the band. I haven't cast Hayley or Megan, but I thought with Samantha, someone like Jade from Little Mix, or just like that kind of a sort of age range singer. You want someone who can sing, but you also want someone who can kind of be a bit believable in that role. And my idea was Samantha's going to be the one who is a songwriter, but was never allowed to actually write the songs originally. And now she's struggling with her creativity because of what happened in the band originally. So she's struggling to kind of be at this sort of focal point of bringing their new hit together to get this Christmas number 1. Hayley will be the one who, she can sing, but she's probably the weaker singer of the group, but she's a really good dancer. She could do like the choreography. And again, her role could have been stunted in the original group where you have, no, you're not doing the choreography. We're going to pay for all these great choreographers from all this time ago. So that's kind of my plan.
Yeah, I was just going to come in on that point then. So you kind of got, obviously, the Jason is like a comedian type actor character. And then you've got a couple of the sort of band are actually genuine singers. Are you then thinking that you'd cast actors or dancers maybe to some degree in the other?
I think you have to have some singers. So I thought you kind of need a little bit of an age difference as well. My idea was that Tina being a little bit older than the other 2 girls, you kind of have that idea that it was built as a vehicle for her originally maybe, and not necessarily by Jason, their manager, but more the record company. And you mentioned there, obviously, casting a comedic actor, but as I say, Jason Manford, he did Waterloo Road last year in a very dramatic role, and I do think he could handle that dramatic side of things. But obviously, with his comedic background, you can put him in the comedic storylines as well. I should also point out I've cast a few other characters in here.
Okay.
So I've cast a record executive. I've called her Jenny in my notes, but she can have any name really from there. It's not crucial to the plot. But I've put Rose Matafeo to be that character. She's someone who's written a sitcom, starred in a sitcom, obviously very comedic as well.
Yeah, so didn't you get the balance of the comedy, the singers? Yeah, okay.
And I thought also her character, I kind of envision her character and Jason Manford's character being kind of always butting heads, but they're always drawn to each other romantically. And my thought process was those two could bounce off each other so well with their comedy timing and things like that. So that was sort of my thought process with casting her. We wrote a character in the original called DJ MC Swag, and I don't know why, but there's only one person I can picture playing that character. It is James Buckley from The In-Betweeners. I think he would be brilliant at doing it because he could just play it at the right level of it being stupid, but also there's kind of a weird, endearing thing to them. Like, you look at Jay in The In-Betweeners that he plays, and, I mean, let's be honest, he tells a lot of tall tales, and most of the time he's found out to be completely BSing people. But you can't help but like him, and I just thought, you know what? That's the kind of person you need to be DJ MC Swag. He's a bit of comic relief. And then I've also got a character called Ryan, who's kind of a busker and a creative inspiration for Samantha. And I thought, who could kind of play that role? And I thought Rupert Grint would be brilliant. Again, done some comedy work, obviously known for the Harry Potter movies. He's actually in I think it's the Lego House video for Ed Sheeran. And he's kind of pitched as like a bit of an Uber fan and whatnot. But actually, you could kind of picture him being this struggling artist who's kind of trying to just make his way and get a bit of traction in his career.
I think you should have gone with Ed Sheeran.
I mean, yeah, Ed Sheeran would be phenomenal, but, well, I say that, the budget and whatnot, but yeah, Ed Sheeran,
The budget, to be fair, you've already cast.
well, yeah.
Who, you know.
To be fair, Ed Sheeran could write the songs, which would be fantastic, so yeah.
Is all saying that our songwriting wasn't good enough, Rich?
No,
Back in the early.
no, but what I'm saying is, you're going to build this kind of show and you're going to do this in the modern day. I think you've got to really push for example, we compared this in the original one to Girls 5 Ever, and obviously they had Sarah Bareilles as part of that, who's a singer-songwriter. I haven't really done as much research on it as I probably should have done, but I'm guessing she probably wrote some stuff song-wise for that show. Certainly, she's obviously a singer, so it kind of helps the concept of that program. But yeah, I've written some episode ideas out and kind of got some ideas, so I don't know if you want me to go through that or not.
Well, I think you've got us this far. You've cast now essentially a sitcom of sorts, of turning the film into, I think, more of a TV series, which I suppose it had that theme. I mean, obviously, again, we do keep shouting out Meredith Scardino, who sort of made Girls 5 Ever, and does she want to do a British version of that show? And I think that's kind of where you've gone with this, Rich. You've kind of brought all that sort of British stuff we brought into it, and then you've cast a load of sort of people, you know, from the UK in a 6-episode season. So this feels like your pitch to Meredith.
Well, I just thought I kind of put a very rough sort of episode guide together. The first episode is obviously Jason trying to get the group back together. Tina basically saying no, she has a solo career already. She's like, no, I'm not doing that. So it kind of ends with Jason going, what am I going to do? You know, I wanted to bring them back together, go for Christmas #1. So the second episode is the auditions, which then introduces Megan, who was a fan. I actually thought, going back on the casting at one point, about someone like Louisa Johnson, another X Factor, a contestant and another winner of X Factor, actually, much like Jade from Little Mix. But I thought, wow, you kind of building up this little bit of an idea then of these characters and giving them that basis to be able to go, oh, this is logically kind of how it would work, bringing in that new member in. And even, as you suggested with some of your notes, the idea of maybe doing some online videos and things like that, that could be incorporated in. And then my idea is kind of like I want Tina to kind of be like the villain of the show in a way. And actually you realise that a lot of this stuff from the record company has come through her, maybe. So like her spreading lies in the media, trying to get the fans to sort of turn against Bliss, the actual group members to turn against each other. So you kind of have them sort of part way through the season, they kind of break apart a little bit, not in that they break up, but just they kind of become distant from each other a little bit. Then you have to bring them back together. So you have Ryan, the busker character that I mentioned, kind of, Samantha could bump into him while he's busking and they kind of get chatting and he kind of helps her to discover that creative spark again. And then she starts thinking about songwriting and so they all kind of reunite then and have their kind of regeneration as this group. And then you kind of have them doing the recordings and things like that. Now, I have mentioned DJ MC Swag as a character that kind of you'd have Tina working with him and doing some songs, and I'll get into the songs in a minute, but you'd have DJ MC Swag working with Tina on that, and then obviously Bliss with Samantha writing that song, with Hayley doing the choreography for it, and they're kind of building to the showcase that will be the season finale. That would also be kind of like a Christmas special type thing, because obviously they're going for the Christmas #1. And then at that sort of final episode, that Christmas showcase, you have obviously DJ MC Swag realizing that Tina is actually using him and trying to get one over on Bliss. So he sort of ditches her to kind of go and help Bliss a little bit maybe. Jenny and Jason, those characters, kind of finally realize that they love each other rather than they loathe each other. And that's kind of the building tension throughout the season, building up to that moment. And then, of course, you have Bliss winning the show. Well, not winning the showcase so much more, but getting Christmas #1. Beating Tina, who doesn't even chart that well, despite all the media production behind her. Bliss are the ones who actually, through sheer willpower and sort of guerrilla marketing and kind of social media and all that kind of stuff, they're the ones that get Christmas #1. So the songs we obviously had Spread Some Christmas Cheer as the idea for Bliss in the original script, and I thought, yeah, bring it back. It's brilliant as a sort of song title. Tina, I had this idea of just her songs being full of innuendo, like just being really like actually not that good. So the song that I had is being called Santa's Sack with DJ MC Swag. No, but you know what I mean? Like, it should be terrible. In truth, that's the thing. So but that's the whole point of it. It's not designed for it to be like, it's designed to be, look at this woman who somehow had this career, and you actually go, are her songs actually that good? And you realise when she comes up against Bliss in this sort of finale, it's raunchy, innuendo-filled sort of stuff doesn't fly anymore. And actually, the audience realises that this uplifting, heartfelt song that Samantha's written for Bliss is the way to go. And that's kind of how it all kind of wraps up in a pretty little bow for Christmas.
So is this what we're writing then, Rich? We're going to do a 6-episode, write a sitcom. Is that what you're sitting here pitching now?
I just felt like this is the way to go with it. I just feel like, having seen what's been done, would it work as a 30-minute short film or anything like that, or even an hour short film? You're going to have to try and fit a lot in. And I think actually, if you break it down into chunks, if you said, right, these are the beats that you've got to follow, you go, right, first you've got to get them back together, or at least attempt to do that. Then there's a failing in that. So then you move on to, obviously, bringing in a new member, auditioning. There's points of humour that can be brought in, but there's also that heartfelt stuff. And this is kind of why I see Gavin and Stacey as part of the inspiration for it as well. I think with The Office, there's a lot of humour in there. There is some heartfelt stuff, but it kind of comes through a bit later in the day. Whereas in Gavin and Stacey, you get that straight away. You get that kind of thing, obviously the two main characters meeting and falling in love very quickly, and you kind of have that moment of them getting married at the end. And so I kind of feel like that's how I'd envision this season. It is literally Bliss versus Tina, the former member, who it actually turns out the other two group members had looked up to her, seen her as this sort of inspirational figure in the group, someone they could kind of learn from, and actually they find she was more using them, and that's kind of been her thing. And then I kind of think you should do follow-ups, so you could have maybe a second season that's them releasing an album, recording an album, Tina plotting her revenge to try and get back at them. So yeah, there's lots of different things that you could do with it.
Okay. Well, I think that's some good ideas there. We did say we would obviously revisit this, and I guess that kind of is a way into that, isn't it? It's a question of then the format change for me is the key thing, because obviously in terms of writing something, albeit a very long time ago in a short film format, and then sort of tweaking and changing that over the years, to take that then into a 6-episode scenario with a modern take is a completely different way of doing something. I can see a value in that.
I think there's a lot of different things we could do with it. And that's my pitch. So there you go.
Well, thank you, Rich. And I suppose this is a good sort of outro to some degree. I mean, this has kind of happened a little bit by chance, really, because we ended up doing this episode a long time ago, and then we've kind of revisited it now. And then next week, we have our season 4 premiere is with a bona fide pop star from a girl group.
Well, yeah, we'll leave you with that little teaser for next week for season 4. But as I say, a bit of a bonus episode, a bit of us just kind of, like I said, brainstorming some ideas and whatnot. But hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. We've really enjoyed doing these little bonus episodes. They're just little bite-sized things, just getting us ready for season 4, really. Season 4 is coming next week, as we've said. A bit of an extended season 4. So we're going to try and get 12 episodes out to you, and alternating guests and just myself and TA. So yeah, got a lot planned. Hopefully you guys are going to enjoy. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Two best mates here to take you to stand. Rachel, Rich, and TA got your health in the hands. Williams, laughs, and tales they tell. For beats and nights, the workouts, they're keeping it real. Oh, it's the little